Um, that's an interesting point that you put up. I thought even I had forgotten that this aspect. It kind of seems like a similar journey. Uh, how do you view that angry Anand right now?
Um, I think that's it had to happen. So I'm not regretful of that. If that's what the question
The
is.
question is,
No, I'm not regretful of that as well. That's in fact I would be. It's quite interesting. That is the self that has carried me through for nearly 45 years of my life. Um, so no, so I don't. So at this stage in my life, I don't need to be angry anymore because I know where the source of the anxiety, because anger comes from a source of anxiety. Right? So I know what the source of anxiety is, and since I have tackled that, hopefully um, the anger doesn't come as much. So which is actually an interesting point, because you started by saying you've always seen me calm, you've always seen me cool and all. What I'm telling you is that I was not like that. So I
hmm,
actually am now having a question in my mind saying, so what persona? I probably had an angry persona. So if you've known some of us, so as a family, we've gone through some challenges in our lives. So, a few years, about 6, 7 years ago, we had a bereavement in the family of someone very close to me. So that obviously had an impact. So if I were to reflect back on me, my personality, I would imagine that there was one side of me previous to that experience, and there's one side to me after that experience. There's one side to me which is 2 years that has cultivated since the last couple of years. So if I were to think, maybe I was the angriest after I lost had that bereavement, until the time that I decided to step away from my corporate career. I was probably the angriest, is the way that I can think of if I were to reflect on the 47 years of my life. Previous to that, I was as rational as I was, but I was probably not angry. So,
uh, my understanding, just to put my two bits, there are a lot of things that you talked about today that I need to sit and think about uh, in terms of matching of personality traits and uh, independent of you or me. That's how I want to study them because that is how they make an impact or not. Because if you're irrational and start putting yourself in every scenario, then there is always that bias. Uh, like I mentioned, the prism through which we see the world. That's going to happen to me as well. Uh, One of the learnings that I have had through whatever experiences life has had to offer is that without that, this could never come about. Like it is as imperative to have that part, uh, or on a simpler level, without suffering, there is no wisdom. And although it is generic, and there are some people who come out who may not have had life-changing experiences, but they are quite wise, then I would think they are just like one of thousand people, something like that. Most of us have a story out of which we grow. And uh, I was in my mind, I was joking when you were saying that now I'm calm and quiet. Earlier I was angry. I said, yeah, grays indicate wisdom since we grew up. And now we are realizing the truth of why they do. Because there is this whole thing about adults don't know everything, and there's a lot of pressure on the world to stay young and be with it, and with this social media and that party and all kinds of things that are happening around us, where I spend a lot of soul searching, where I did not want to belong to those kind of things and did not know how to. You want people in your life, but you want people who are mulling over how to make it as ideal as possible, for want of a better term. uh, or at least they are trying to figure out uh, ways of enriching their own existence and the world around us. It's an opportunity of sorts in my head. Um, it is interesting to note that irrespective of how we see ourselves, there are always flaws in our own judgment about ourselves also, because you mentioned once or twice about the compassion bit. Uh, I think forgiving oneself, or rather accepting oneself more than forgiving, because forgiveness is too strong a term for most people to understand, and it really requires a quote unquote saintly demeanor almost, because there is no true forgiveness for most of us. We let go because we are tired of the fight or something like that. But it's not really forgiveness in the sense that I stand, I say that you've done this wrong to me, and I'm accepting it. And it could be me about myself as well. So, in that sense, your acceptance of your earlier persona is again wisdom being shown in your actions rather than just talking about things. One of the things that I've always feared on the Values Workshop podcast are there is too much of inner life being spoken of, so it may seem impractical to a lot of people, but it is not. Actually, what is being spoken of is human experiences and our ways of dealing with them, and that is
You
very critical.
it's a couple of interesting observations, right? So one is I'm still um
Worked
I'm
up about.
no I yeah, there are things that are irritants for me, which I still try to cope figure out why. For example, I get irritated with a lot of, and this is more common than I get irritated with people saying things which sound very empty, right?
They sound
Uh,
very.
Empty. It's very empty. Meaning,
Yeah,
if it's very rhetorical. The whole world is, when I say rhetorical, you say things which have either there's no purpose or there's no question. So so I still get very annoyed. I get annoyed with whenever that happens. But then I have real and often I have displayed that annoyance. Even now, right? A few months ago, I was in India and with someone that I know very closely. I said, why are you saying that? And I didn't say why are you saying that. I said, something to the effect saying, I get asked when I get asked. This is a very civil forum where you said, "Oh, you're very quiet," and you're. But in that forum, I was very annoyed. I took offense, saying, "Why the hell do you think I am quiet? Have you even in my head?" Was starting to think either you're foolish or you're deaf. That's in my head. I'm saying you're deaf because you can't even hear what you're speaking. That's the level of annoyance I had with that individual, and so I still go through challenges with myself at that time. Then I very quickly correct myself saying most people are like that. Most people like to say things which are easy to hear. It may not mean anything, right? If it fits nicely at the back of a bumper sticker, most people will like it. I am not that guy because I would want to understand the meaning. I would not ask anything unless and until there is anything meaningful that I need to ask. I genuinely will ask, so which is goes back to your question around wisdom, right? In my book, wisdom and age are not connected because I may get a nugget of wisdom from my 14-year-old daughter. Okay. And I have seen, 80, 60, 70-year old, and a 60, 70-year old when they're cognitively, less able. I'm not talking about those kind of individuals who are, having some challenges in their thinking. But people in the boardroom as well, 55, 55, 60-year olds, they don't have, you have that moment, right? What were you thinking when you made that decision? So, so for me, those I have had to work harder to overcome that angry part side, and that's still a work in progress. I have to be honest about it. There are occasions where
yeah.
very close to me, most people are, they'll say stuff. I said, why are you saying that? Just unnecessary words. It adds to
I'll
anxiety.
give you a little bit of perspective on that. It might help if you want to pick that up.
Sure, any help is a
Uh,
helpful.
uh, I realize. quite a long time back that I've read more books than most people, and it is a drawback because
Yes.
you know too much about too many things, and with a reasonable sense of working intelligence.
Yes.
Um, Thanks to my own life experiences, uh, my marriage, my having a child, uh, having friends who have been in different kinds of fields, and my own work as a writer, which involves studying people because I'm appealing to their greed or their uh, something or the other because advertising works on that format. Um, One of the things I realized very loosely, I did mention some time back that for billions of years the world has been working quite all right. With us, without us, really does not make a difference. I actually intrinsically uh, think that. I think the world is, if nature is God or nature is the world itself as we experience it, it is fulfilling and taking away things as per the energy levels that it wants to maintain or whatever. Energy is also a very loose term I'm using here because I don't want to get technical about it. But it's basically the world is functioning. For its functioning, it needs something. So it needs a politician, it needs a policeman, it needs citizens, it needs army, it needs rich people, it needs poor people, it needs people who are working for the environment, it needs people who are perhaps not working for the good of the environment. I do not really know. But I realize there is a balance, there are things happening. It may not be palatable to us, but it is not individual. And whatever experience I am going through as an individual, when I'm taking that perspective, I am realizing that it has come to teach me something. So I am finding people around me. Of late, I don't know whether we had this talk when you had come over, when you came to India. We are doing some work with senior citizens in my society. We are just holding a function. Basically, once a month, they just get together. We play games or talk or have some chai. And this happens there also.
Hmm.
Like I tried to, this is the first time where I had a chance to bring in a topic where I thought okay, we will try and tap their collective wisdom and make them talk about things which matter. And I started with an example so that the story kind of sets that example for them so that all of them can pick it up. I think the first person picked it up, the second brought it down,
Sorry. Yeah.
the, and then this whole topic went to some godly spiritual thing, and then it went to some personal stories, and then it had no relevance to what I had proposed. So much so that after a point that I was thinking that uh, this is what they should be contemplating because they are in my head, they are at the end of their life cycles of sorts, and uh, things that bring peace, things that evoke kindness, things that make the world a better place. Whatever your life experiences, now it's the time to let go of all other biases and just calm down a bit if you can.
Hmm.
Something that triggers that off, and I brought that up, and that completely got lost. And it went
Okay.
into some God space and spiritual space, and this place you go, and that is a very nice pilgrimage, and I completely was trying to figure out what's happening. And there were hardly 8 or 10 people. This was a comparatively smaller group than always. And then finally, when we ended, I said, "Hello, maybe we are the gods that need to make the change." I just ended on that, and I don't know how seriously I was taken, and I know what you're saying. But within that also, if there is a Bunty sitting there to give an idea, there is a person to take the idea or not take the idea. And that is the sanctity of the moment. The sacredness of the moment is what is, not what we expect it to be. You can put it up, you can get irritated. But being irritated is part of the plan, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because
I know.
because the good part is as long as you come back to yourself and you're lucky, at least you just start questioning yourself and say that people are like this and all. Sometimes in my parenting, I behave badly with my some few days back, I think I landed up saying something out of anger, and I said, "Shut up! I am your father, and you got to listen." And she went away. And then, actually, within 10 minutes, I knew that I was wrong, and I said few things that I didn't even mean to start with. Like I didn't even want to go on that. So I sent her a message saying that, listen, my argument was definitely wrong, even though the point I was making was right. So I think we all need to think on this. And she came back from school, saw her phone, and she said, "No, maybe I think I should be sorry as well." And the matter ended there. None of us took it personally, and in fact, this is like you said, wisdom can come from somebody younger to us. She
Yes.
has brought it up a couple of times. She said, "What I like is that you don't hold on to grievances of these kind. If it is not important, you will fire me and you will let it go. Within 1 hour, you will not be sulking. And why did I do this or not?" And I actually borrowed that and made it a part of my life because I thought it's a rare compliment and something that I should work on consciously. So yeah, to maybe that idea you can pick up that the world is functioning. We have our parts. To quote Shakespeare, we all come and play our parts, and once we are done, we that gives a sense of purpose also to what you're doing. At the same time, it also makes it very light that maybe you're not important. It's okay. It may not happen the way you thought so.
Actually, and it goes back to your original point saying, do I see myself as a victim and all of that, right? One of the things that has very commonly come across, has been identified, is that apparently I have a sense of humor. Now, apparently, so this is apparently, there are others who have told me, apparently I'm funny. Now, for you to be genuinely funny, you need to have the ability to laugh on yourself. Okay?
True.
So, so I often crack jokes, especially, and this goes on more with my daughter and others, right? So you need to have the ability to laugh on yourself.
True.
So, and that's where I have realized that the people that I get along very well with, and what the way that my daughter says, if I have a vibe check, apparently that's the term. I have a
Yeah.
vibe check. If I have a vibe check, usually, if I have a vibe check with someone, then we are able to usually laugh at each other. So that's one of my core guiding principles, is that if I'm able to laugh with someone, then I have a vibe check with that person. So so that is one. Second thing is, we went back to the discussion about persona and expectation. Right? So though they are interconnected. So we spoke about how you have seen me, or what you think of me, as being calm, collected, and so on and so forth. I thought I was an angry young man for about 4, 5, 6 years. All the world is like is a crazy
Mhm.
place. Everyone's wrong. I'm right.
True.
And But you have to also think the other way around. So there are people around you who have different expectations of you. So my mom has a different expectation of me, my wife, my daughter, my boss when I was working full time, my peers, my employees, they all have different expectations of me. So by that extension, they would see me differently. Right?
True.
Uh, so the only thing which was common is is the only pattern that I was always looking for from feedback, saying, is there anything which is uncanny, or is out of the ordinary that comes through in my behavior? Which is where I say that what came out of the ordinary as a feedback from others is that I am angrier than before. So so I'm conscious of the fact that people would see me differently. Even now, in the last, I think I'm calm, composed. I have a much better handle on my anxieties, and therefore I'm less angrier. But I'm sure people would still look at me differently. Different people look at me differently, and I am aware of that now. Previously, I was not aware of that. Now I'm aware of it. So I'm much more comfortable with myself. Overall, I'm at a space where I'm much more comfortable with myself as an individual than what I was maybe 2 years ago. So that's the way that I would try and tell you.
And that is something I would actually vouch for. because this time when I met you, and earlier that I met you, but I gave some credit to age and life experience. Uh, because I kind of expect that anybody who's going through certain age and life experience issues, whatever they face, whatever their particular uh, karma or whatever you want to call it, should make them contemplate, should make them relook at the template they are setting for themselves in terms of habit patterns, in terms of thinking processes, or whatever the way they deal with the world. And that I think is a very critical human trait. If we are not doing that, then if you're not contemplating, then there's really no use. Habits have to be it then from 0 to 70. Suppose if we are living till 70, there's been no growth in the real sense. Maybe that is also the reason most people are the way they are, because that is very comforting. Whereas
Yes,
life may not like it like that, and life loves to trip you where you think you are most comforted. There's
correct.
been
So
a sorry,
there's one other point that I wanted to
please,
bring up
please.
again from what you said, right? So you said you've read a lot of books, and the more you've read, the more you know that you don't feel that you've learned much. So I mean that's the way that I'm paraphrasing it, and that's what my
Yeah,
experience as well is.
yeah,
So 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 while the reason why I am rational is because rationality comes at the back of knowledge, right?
yeah,
Usually it is correlated.
yeah,
The
yeah,
more you're aware, the more you tend to be rational. That's the general thinking. Although I have seen very educated people behave very irrationally as well. So the general correlation is that rationality is based on knowledge, which usually comes with critical thinking. Right? That's the
yeah,
term that if you are so critical thinking. Also, now that I work within the so I moved away from technology. I've also consulted with a biotech company. So this company does a lot of work with for pharmaceutical companies. So early stage research on drug development. So I have the understanding of how that process works, and I can assure you that the complexity that the human body is unfathomable. Okay, so I have come away thinking the more I learn, the less I know.
yeah,
So the more I learn, the less I know. So the more I learn about how inflammation works, how blood brain, how drug compounds go and don't go beyond blood brain barrier, how immuno-oncology gets treated or handled, and the kinds of assays that uh, drug development companies use to decide whether a compound is good, bad, or ugly, how they weigh between toxicity and efficacy, all of that, right? All the good stuff, which all gets combined into some kind of a statistical model, which is standardized, and then somebody decides this is good enough to be administered. I've come to realize that it's not the case. So,
mhm,
so the more I learn, the less I know, and that's been actually the part where you said being humble. Um, my source of anger was I have the ability to have critical thinking. I am rational because I know more than you. Maybe I generally am able to. So I have books. I actually read much less now than what I used to do before. My wife would
mhm,
tell, so I don't read as much because there is so much that I have to do and also think for myself. You think on your own, right? So my wife usually goes to this place called Vipassana. I'm sure you're aware of that. So Vipassana is a place where you go and there is a framework or there's a mechanism for you that forces you to be reflective.
yeah,
And I have often asked that question by the thing, why are you not going? When this question was asked about 2 years before, I would have an angry response saying, why the hell should I go? Right. But now I have come to a realization that no, because I am reflective
reflective by nature.
on my own by nature. I don't need that setup. But most people are not. That's the reason why it's so popular, right? It's oversubscribed.
Yeah, that is true.
The reason why it's oversubscribed is just most people in the world are not reflective by nature. So all of this has come together in the last couple of years, Surinder. So I'm
Mhm.
in a better place.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful chat and so much to go back to and reflect on. Although impromptu, but it seems like that everything kind of fell in place in terms of questions, answers, like always. But this time there are a lot of little provocations that you put in because it's fairly close to my kind of questioning at this moment of sorts. So I would want to reflect on that. Thank you for your time, and this has been an absolute joy.
Thank you very much, Chandran. Happy to connect again whenever you have time or you wish to.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.